Well, Karina, we're excited to have you on today. This is episode 2 of Sarah and I's quest on doing creative strategy for brands. So we are going to be looking at a brand that you're working with. Maybe introduce yourself and then tell us a little bit about the brand.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm Karina and I have 6 years experience in media buying and I work with CIDEX and we work with this amazing client. It's called Bees and Trees and they say Manuka honey from New Zealand. So they are very original in terms of what they do. They make sure that all certifications are up to date with all of the healthcare requirements. As this brand is specifically aim to help with gut issues. It helps with skincare. It also helps like with cold even. So like even for parents, this is an amazing brand to go after. There are different levels of MGO, which basically helps you for different things like inflammation, and it really like you wouldn't think that honey could go to this depth of healing specific areas for certain people, but I've seen it from like a demographic standpoint. Like, it's so varying. Like, it could be from like a 50-year-old woman to like just parents, buying for their kids because it helps with cold.
That is very interesting. Yeah, this was new to me. Sarah, were you familiar with this type of honey before we jumped in?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually
No?
worked with a few brands a couple years ago, probably like 2 years ago now, that worked with Manuka honey. And that was the
Okay.
first time I'd ever heard about it. And I was like, isn't it just honey? And I had to get very educated. It's a very different type of honey, very specific type of honey. And in particular, this industry, I would say, for specifically Manuka honey, is booming. Lots of people really
Yeah.
interested in this specific type of honey. So I love it. I'm here for it. It's amazing.
I
Yeah.
think it's because of all the different benefits, like even skincare.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed
Multi-use.
that. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think it's interesting how many multi-uses there are for it. Mostly, again, if you're going to be marketing towards this particular type of customer who's very into kind of holistic natural healing, you're going to notice that there's these like wide ranges of use cases. Somebody's going to use it for gut health. Somebody's going to use it for skin. Somebody's going to use it for like, I don't know, inflammation. They're going to use it for all kinds of different things. So I can't wait to like dive deep and to see what you guys already know about the brand and to see what Colby found. Because I'm like, now I need to know. Now I'm just curious. What's going on in here?
Yeah, and I'm curious a little bit before we dive into the research. Is there any? Does the brand want to angle to one specific condition or one specific use case, or do they want to kind of go like multi-use case? Do they have any sort of brand positioning that they're already firm in, or do they feel like that's an opportunity? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's actually very firm in terms of gut issues,
Okay.
but it's also branching out, because of demand. Like people are looking at like even like in Google Trends, like when I was looking at it yesterday, it was like benefits sexually, and I was like,
That's
like
so
never
interesting.
thought of it.
People are really getting creative with it. That's awesome,
Yeah.
though. Ooh, I love this. Coming up with their own use case. Fascinating.
Yeah, I know when we started doing research, so generally we'll look at competitor research and then we'll look at voice of customer research. And we do that by breaking down the competitors' websites and their ads. And then we'll look to see what people are saying in the competitors' reviews and then also in Reddit as well. And we looked at two main competitors. So the first one we looked at was Manacora. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Manacora?
I would guess.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And on their website, the main things that they were talking about, homepage, about page, and PDPs, was product quality, right? They were directly addressing the differentiator between themselves and what we'll call normal honey or honey you would get at your local farmer's market. They started to dive into the health benefits and really started to help people understand the specific ingredients or the MGO that goes into, because it's not even just this type of honey versus local honey. There is grades to the MGO as well. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It depending on the MGO, it can help you with inflammation, or just for example, like very specific for GERD, like a type of disease.
Yeah. And when I was looking at this brand, and Sarah, feel free disagree or jump in here. Compared to the other competitor, I didn't see as much like brand angle or differentiator with this one. They were very heavy on the product quality and the product ingredients, But with the other competitor that we'll get to, I felt they were going more of like a medical route, or like a
Yeah.
like high quality, like premium grade medical sterile route. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that for this brand, Sarah?
It's really interesting because when I started to look at all of the brands side by side, and I typically do this when I do creative strategy for brands, I'll pull up all of the home pages of
Mhm.
everybody in our industry, like literally anybody that we could possibly compete with, and take a look at just a few things. I take a look at specifically hero images and what text is on the hero image, the kind of vibe of the website, so I can kind of get an idea of like how are we differentiated visually, and how we feel to the customers. And then I will take a look and see, is there any messaging on these sites that are like repeating itself, right? So I can figure out what are they actually saying to their customers that's different from what we're saying. Now, Colby does a great job with any sort of research. Every time I see research for Brighter Click, you guys are like spot on
Flip
with
it, use
where I
it
would
on
go.
social.
And it's fascinating because the deeper you go into this, the more research you get into, the more these patterns are going to just like pop up constantly. So one of the things that I noticed specifically about bees and trees compared to everybody else is we're all sort of the same brand visually and vibe wise. We have a few brands that are trying to differentiate with a USP, is what I would call it. So, like Manuka Doctor in particular is one of the brands that is going straight after more of a medicalized clinical. Like this is a basically a holistic alternative, but it has doctor level results. Is kind of what it's trying to say.
Mhm.
Even their website looks very medicalized. There's a bunch of doctors on it. Colors, like I don't know, logos, those type of things, pictures, images. All of that is pretty similar to what's happening in the industry, but their overall message is going much more clinical. If you look at other competitors, Weatherspoon being one of them, Manuka, which is one, and Bees and Trees, everyone else kind of looks very, very similar. And the messaging on all of these websites, very, very similar. So one of the best things that you can do with creative strategy, and this is the reason why I love that the media buyers are kind of at the forefront of everything, and creative strategists in particular, you guys notice stuff in the industry that's like a pretty big, powerful mechanism or like lever you can pull before anybody else in the brand will because you're so close to the marketing piece of it. You're so close to the acquisition of the customers. So just from like a high level, how do we compete in the market? You guys are very much kind of mid-market. We're like stuck in the middle a little bit because everybody else kind of looks the same. So the best thing I think that Bees and Trees can probably do this year is to branch out in their vibe, get either real wild with it and go crazy off into the corner, which I always suggest because Sarah likes to do bizarre things. But if you're not going to do that, we need to try and somehow come up with some sort of differentiator in the market. We got to position a little bit better so that we can compete, because there's only one in the industry right now that I see that actually competes in a different like ocean, if that makes sense.
And that would be the Doctor brand, Manuka
Dr.
Doctor.
Brand. Dr. Brand.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree 100%. And this is the thing that I like about Bees and Trees compared to, let's say, like Manuka Doctor, right? If I go to Manuka Doctor's homepage and I'm looking in the hero section, I see 3 products like side by side. It says 50% off hand pack. When I look at that image, I automatically think, okay, these products were photoshopped in to this background. And
Yep.
I feel like those labels were put on after, and this is a dropship product. Now, I know that they're
Oh,
going for more of
interesting.
like a high quality thing,
Yeah.
but that doesn't get like kind of dismissed when I look down and it's just white background images right below it with the product that way. Whereas when I go to Bees and Trees, there's a mom and her child and they're messing with the product. There's color backgrounds on the photos. Your labels look like they're actually on the product, like it's an actual photo taken. And I get the down to earth small batch feeling that you mentioned a few sections down when it comes to choosing your Manuka, right? I agree 100%. I think from just a brand perspective, which ultimately feeds into your creative strategy and the ads you're making, which we'll talk about, I think really leaning into that would be very beneficial for the brand and going for that down to earth, localized, non mass produced commercial type product that way, because you can also raise price premiums and things like that as you go as well.
Yeah, I would agree with this. I think this is a really smart move because if you look at the products of everybody else, of Manuka and Weatherspoon, some of these other ones, almost all of their products almost look like a supplement.
Yeah.
Like they're going
Mhm.
supplement vibe
Mhm.
instead of going like what they should be going, which is into, what would you call it? Almost like kitchen staple, right? Kitchen
Mm.
staple, which is really interesting because your specific brand, the product in particular, looks like something mom would have in her cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that I find interesting because if you lean heavily into that, we can start to capture some of the audience that is currently looking for holistic alternatives to match the lifestyle that they're trying to create. And right now, there's a huge, huge cultural movement going on around homesteading and
Mhm.
like getting chickens and like owning your own farm, right? So, and obviously, a lot of these moms can't do that because they live in cities or they're in urban areas. So the next best thing is to keep products in their home that make them feel like they could do that for their families. You guys have a good, yeah, you got a good base for that you could just push heavy into and start to become almost like, my grandmother used to keep whatever it is in her cabinet and it cured me every time and it was just
Yeah.
honey.
And there's actually one thing that I see across a lot of comments and reviews, and it's the glacier.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. They
I
love
like
the
that.
glass.
Yeah.
Wow.
Big.
Okay.
I know in Australia at least. I should have asked this at the beginning. What's the main market sales are in? Is it United States?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because we're speaking as two Americans through all of this as well. And so, I know there is a big push, especially in America. I mean, maybe it's just in my social media algorithms, but to move away from plastics. We're finding plastic in your brain. We're finding plastic in the bloodstream. Like all these microplastics are happening. I like the glass jar. I agree also. I think your label looks more natural. It looks,
Mhm.
I don't use the term older, but you know what I mean? Whereas if we look at Manuka Doctor, it just looks like a drop ship product. And there's I can't remember the name of it, Celsius. There was a CNBC special on that recently, how when they did their rebrand and they grew, they went from one packaging to another to final their current packaging or their bottling that transitioned from looking like a fat burner to looking like a more neutral female oriented type drink, and that helped them scale up and grow that way. And I think the
Yeah.
labeling also matches that movement. So I think, yeah, I think that would be a great starting point, is just addressing that brand positioning and really leaning into that on all channels as we kind of feed into the rest of this conversation on creative strategy as well.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think you might have had something also.
Yes. So I kind of want to dive into a little bit more of this research that we found because you actually sent us like this great document, and
Yeah.
I saw that you had a ton of information coming off of Google Trends, which I'm a big fan of Google Trends. So I'm like, yay, Google Trends. Some of the things that we want to call out here. So it looks like you guys have a consistent spike around like January-ish, which doesn't shock me a ton, mostly because that's kind of a new year, new you.
Yeah.
People are
Mhm.
going in testing products around health right
Yeah.
around the beginning of the new year. Now, this is really interesting though because we talked about this before. There's lots of use cases in the brand. So, how do we know which use case is going to be the best one to go after, specifically when it comes to ads? How do we know how to split this up creatively? Where what percentage of each avatar inside our ecosystem do we need to build ads for, and how do we know which one is going to resonate at this specific time of the year? For you guys, you had two that were coming out on the Google Trends report. So it looks like we were studying gut health and acid reflux. Can you give me more context as to what you guys have tested around gut health and acid reflux?
Yeah. So, for example, for gut health, one of the things that have, and this is also like coming from the research, like people are more into education. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of leading to just like a product page, which is actually one of like the best practices, right? You always say like, oh, your ad should go to specifically product page
Yeah.
because then you're ready to buy and stuff. Well, here it's actually the other way around. Like people are more into
Mm.
education, like how is this actually beneficial for you, for your gut,
Yeah.
or for like acid reflux or stomach issues in general. So that is one of the things that we have done, and it has actually worked because yeah, everywhere around, like even like in Reddit, you'll see that they're like, oh, I have been researching all day to find if Manuka honey is actually worth it, and they find it through health
Interesting.
blogs, they find it through a lot of things. So we do have our own blog pages about how Manuka honey can help you with different stomach
Yeah.
issues and gut issues.
Interesting. So, talk to me about demographically. I mean, I'm going to assume your audience is probably older, somewhere like 30s and up. We talked about this before, but like in your 30s, stuff starts breaking. Your body just starts doing weird stuff, and you're like, I'd never experienced that before, but now I have heartburn, or now I have like colitis. I have issues. Like I have all these other things that are bugging me. If you have an older audience, it doesn't shock me that they want more education. Gen Xers in particular and boomers are really into consuming, right? They're really into like, give me all the information because I want to make sure this product is for me. But they also seem to really enjoy the research process. Like they get really well educated before they start to purchase products. Primarily because I think these two generations are very sensitive to what we would call just like branding in general. Like they don't really enjoy being duped, if that makes sense. So they're real careful about who they buy from, and they want to make sure that they align with that brand pretty heavily before they go into actually purchasing. Yeah. So some of the stuff that's coming out from your research, we talked about like what pains they're experiencing. So if they are in the acid reflux kind of group, burning sensations, sour taste in the mouth, bloating, gas, indigestion. When they realized this problem happened was when their over-the-counter antacid stopped working. Couple other different things that they notice, obviously, when their quality of life diminished. I want to talk. Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I think the other reason why they are researching so much is because they've also spent a lot of money on other,
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I would agree with that. Like it's expensive to have these gut issues. So, and the reason why I loved like dissecting research, especially if it comes from multiple different sources, is the reason why I love that like Colby gives me this giant, like huge stack of like slide deck that has tons of really interesting information in it. I like pulling it from many different sources because like we talked about before, if we're actually trying to figure out which avatar and what time of the year, we can start to pull out some of these, what would you call it? Consistent patterns that show up seasonally. So we can go back into Shopify data and understand, okay, we ran a survey at this particular time of the year, trying to ask people, what are you currently dealing with? If we're seeing a lot of acid reflux come in April, then we need to start talking about acid reflux 6 weeks before April happens. So this is kind of how we start to build a strategy around it because you have so many use cases fatigue. So anytime I do any sort of creative strategy with anybody, I have to remind them, if you're seeing this, like our ads are peak fatigue, they'll work for a minute and then they'll die. It's typically because we're going after use case and not after like identity. So blending those two together. If we're going to go after this holistic mom, she always had this in the cabinet. It's a secret, really like just family remedy that like the doctors really don't know about. That's kind of our new sort of like positioning. Then we can start to put use cases on top of it. So creatively, if we have this like, this is the secret weapon in your cabinet, basically, we can start to put acid reflux on top of there or GERD on top of there. And that way, you will start to connect both identity and use case together, and your ads should last longer. Especially if you have deep competitors in the space. I don't know. What do you think about this, Colby?
No, I agree. I mean, I'm going to speak from personal experience, and I'm resonating with the amazing document that, Karina, you could turn this into a comment research on LinkedIn type hook to get people to get, or I'm going to show this to my team and say, why aren't we doing this for our research? Like, this has been great. But I resonated with all that. As I shared before, I have ulcerative colitis, so not acid reflux, a little bit different. But when I'm searching for things, and luckily I'm in a good place now, but when I was searching for things early on, while I was in the peak problem, I was very deep in finding solutions. Like, and I wanted a solution now. So if I found something I thought would work, I would look in Reddit. I would look for other people's opinions on that in Reddit. I would, find things that people agreed with. And then I would order 3 or 4 things at a time, like 3 or 4 different things, and just try out different things to see what would work. So if the problem is bad enough, the purchasing cycle can be shorter, but just like that, it can have peaks and valleys because I'm in deep research right in that point in time. You know what I mean? So that may be something that we could kind of look at as we go into creative strategy, is just having layers on it.
Yep, I would agree. So one of the things that I want to call out too, very, very important thing that Colby said is he was ready to purchase all these different products because the problem became so dire that like he just needed it fixed now. So, and this is where, again, I go back to like, how do we know? How do we set this up? What strategy should we put in place? How are we supposed to reach all these people with like one message? That's got to be so difficult. Easiest way to do this is to run, and I've tested this in like lots of different brands in the last couple of years, run basically 4 types of ads. So we talk about the fact that we have this funnel, right? Top funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel. But I think it's a little too simplistic, especially when it comes to paid advertising, because it doesn't really hit all the use cases. It only hits specific like pieces of it. So I usually run about 4 different types of ads. The first one's going to be those trigger ads. A lot of people are running trigger ads, or they're running exploration or evaluation ads, which I'll talk about in a second. But trigger ads are run constantly. It's like, you have acid reflux, you need it fixed. Here's some honey that will help you, right? Here's a product that will help you. Lots and lots and lots of trigger ads means this in your ad account, because they only work when people are looking for it. That when is like critical. So I still like to run trigger ads, but I only want that to be maybe like 10 to 20% of the ads that I'm running creatively. The next section of it is going to be those exploration ads. These people know a little bit about what's going on. They have heard about Manuka honey, but they're not quite sure. Am I ready to buy? I don't know which brand is best. Like, how big do these come in? How long are they going to last? Those type of things. So those are the ads where are well suited to like TikTok made me buy it. 3 reasons why. Although I would shy away from like the foundational stuff. I would get more creative with it. But exploration, where you're just kind of like looking for stuff. Those do really well with educational style customers and brands, which is great because it sounds like your customers really love education anyways. Yeah. So that, I would say, probably a good 25% of your ad account should be that. The next section is going to be evaluation. So I know a lot. I've done a lot of research. I'm really well educated on this. Take Colby for an example. Like, I know I have a big problem. The emotional pressure of solving it is becoming greater and greater and greater. We're getting close to the point where I just got to solve this. I need something to fix it. So I'm feeling the pressure. Once you get to that kind of evaluative phase, those ads need to talk about the fact that you're different, right? Put yourself in differentiation mode. And especially for you guys, because you have a lot of like blendedness across the industry. This is where we start talking about the fact that like our grandmother knew this was a thing, right? Generations before us have used this. Like, this has been a part of natural health for literal decades. Like, we knew this was a thing, and you just need to give yourself permission to try it, right? Give yourself permission to try it. So that's kind of evaluative ads, and that's kind of another like 25% of this. So we're up to like 60% of the ad account now, 10%, 25, and 25. The rest of those should be filled with offers that are going to be well suited to what they're currently trying to solve in their entire life, not necessarily just your price, your bundles, your discounts. So this takes a little bit deeper research to understand what the consumers actually want right now. But a lot of times people just go straight to discount. Here's 25% off. Here's 50% off. You know, we're running like a $10 off, whatever it is. I shy away from discounts as much as I possibly can, because people are willing to pay full price for something that will solve their problem now.
100%.
Now. So, yeah. So the best thing you can do is, I like to run a bunch of different tests in here. We'll run discounted offers. We'll run bundle offers. We will run free gift offers. We will run get on the phone with somebody and we'll tell you all about this product offers, right? We'll run a crap ton of offers, but they're only ever in 3 buckets. So these buckets are done for you, basically. So I'm just going to give you everything you need. You don't even need to worry about it. It's literally just get it and run it, right? There's another bucket which is done with you, meaning we're either going to get on the phone with a honey expert, or I'm going to give you all kinds of white papers or checklists or check sheets or this, spreadsheet to help you track all of your symptoms, whatever it is, done with you. Or there's like a do it yourself, which is just like, here's everything you need, take it into your house and do it. So I run offers in those 3 buckets every single time, and then we can test and see every single like season. Right now, the consumers just want a done for you service. They just don't want to deal with it. In the summer, they may want a done with you service. In the winter, they may want to just do it themselves. Yeah. So I split these up into the ad account. That last little section of which is basically just purchase ads. That last little section is split between 3 different types. But if you run it in this particular system, you'll start to notice that like different ad types are going to be working at different times of the year. And so this is a little bit of like Sarah's methodology. I don't really believe in like volume based messaging unless you really, really know what your customers are. Louder. I don't love volume. I'm sorry, people. Mostly because I think it's a crutch. It's compensation for not knowing what we're doing, which is fine. but it's very expensive.
Creative volume is the new crutch, like blaming creative fatigue was. So now it's like, you know what I mean? It's
We
all
used to
caused
blame
by a root
fatigue. Yep.
problem, which is no
And now it's
strategy.
volume. Yes. So your strategy needs to be built on leaving your scientific tests on, leaving them on. We got to have some sort of data on the back end so that we can actually gather data, take it, look at it, and understand what happened here. What happened? That's critical. So I feel like I should stop talking, but I could talk about this all day long.
No,
it's fascinating.
all that's good. I want to echo one thing you just said as we move into the creative piece, which is ROAS and CPA are very important. ROAS and CPA are very important. They're very important. Sometimes you need to learn other things in your account, though. And if you're working with a brand that's at a stage that doesn't fully have brand positioning nailed down or brand messaging nailed down, sometimes you need to leave some things running with the idea that you're not just burning budget, but you're learning additional things as well, right?
Yes.
And one other thing that I will add in is I don't even know if it'll go into our ads, but I'm just going to throw it out there because it was relevant in my purchasing experience. Was I had the problem, and UC is kind of different than what we're looking at here, but my problem was not necessarily the problem. Like, to me, the problem looked like having to drive my car with a spare pair of underwear and pants in the trunk, and having to, like, always when I walked in somewhere, like, no, you can laugh. You don't have to feel bad. Like, it's funny at this point.
I feel that pain. I'm just like, I can feel it in my stomach. I know what that feels like. That's just like, I'm going to die.
Having to, like, check to where the bathroom was when you walked in somewhere, or like sit near it, or like choose your plane seat kind of near it, those types of things. So if you look into, like, people always say, like, I would love to make medical commercials because they look like they're so low thought and everything, but they know their audiences. Like, if you look at a UC commercial, it's like people hiking in the mountains, or, like, to me, it was a big deal that I could go scuba diving in a scuba diving class in a wetsuit after I got this new probiotic that started working for me, because 3 weeks before that would have never happened. You know what I mean? So there is that like, knowing your audience aspect. And if you can wrap that into your messaging as well, of like, what is it really impacting them on? Time away from family, time away from hobbies, like, that can be helpful as well.
Yes. For this particular customer too, what Colby's talking about is like empowerment.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel empowered. I have relief. Like, now I can go just live my life. Yeah, I could live my life at any capacity that I want. I find a lot of brands struggle with trying to message towards that, because they want to go straight after, like, live your life, do whatever you want. You could have the amazing, like, and they get sensationalized with it. But a lot of it is very subtle, very, very subtle, consistent life experiences that these people are missing out on because they can't solve this particular problem for themselves. So when it comes to honey, it'd be interesting to start kind of wrapping some of that in here, where it's like, we're not trying to solve, like, giant medical issues. We're just trying to make it so that you can go to your kid's graduation and not have to miss him walking because you had to go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple.
And looking at your competitors' ads, and I know that's just one facet of creative strategy, right? So there's the things that we've talked about, and just kind of a recap that for anyone listening. We started out looking at brand positioning. Sarah does a very good job at looking at how can we establish brand angle in the market first before we try to go into discounts or even just empowerment or messaging angles, right? So brand positioning for this brand, we talked about going the grassroots, the natural approach, making sure we really lean into that small batch production, the glass jars, like that level of detail, to making sure you're getting quality. Because this product is a nature product. Like, you want it straight from the bee. You want it as natural as possible versus being something that's like overly produced. Now we're going into how can we understand our messaging angles within that and our creative production or execution within that. Looking at your competitors, the first brand, Manuka, they use a lot of UGC, which I love UGC. We provide UGC for our clients. My thought, though, with the type of UGC that they were running, looking in their ads library, is I felt like it cheapened the product a bit for me. Like, I felt like it I don't say overhooked it, because that doesn't make sense. Somebody's not a marketer, but like oversold it. You know what I mean? There was no like real like education. I felt like I was being sold education versus just getting education. And one interesting thing that I noticed in a Reddit thread, because I think micro or nano influencers could be a type of creative, and I won't get far into that wormhole, but I was looking at a Reddit conversation about Manuka Doctor, and somebody actually said, where is it at? Somebody made me buy it, which is like an influencer. So I think they're good marketing. I've had it for a few months and I do like it. However, I've not seen any benefit from it. It dries relatively quickly, blah, blah, blah. Plus now Kourtney Kardashian is a spokesperson for the brand, which in my opinion cheapens it a little. Overall, it's an okay product that I will use, but probably not rebuy. And the main question was somebody asking if it works or if they just have really good marketing.
Wow.
So that was very interesting to me
That's
because I
interesting.
think it just resonates on the fact that people want the product. Like people want good quality natural product here as opposed to like over marketed hype that you generally see in the supplement industry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting too because even when I was researching, like it mostly came from an advice from a friend or your mom even. Like
Yeah.
I think it's funny that Sarah mentioned it because like it did say one of the Reddit that I read, it was like my mom recommended it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. That recommendation seems to be like critical for these people's decision-making skills.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, at the end of the day, it's like there's so many different brands I could choose from. I could go and do all of the research myself, or I can shortcut, right? I can shorten the amount of information I need to make a decision just by asking someone, do you know anything about Manuka
Yeah.
honey? And is this something I should get with? So, and that I find really, it's so critical, I think, for brands to understand that a lot of our sales aren't really coming from how our accounts are set up or how many ads we're running or really kind of the angles of things, even though that's pretty important. A lot of this is coming down to, did they hear somebody say that you are legit?
Yeah.
And actually,
Pretty important.
one of the creators we did here at CDEX was using one of our colleagues' mom to show because she was using the Manuka honey and
Yeah.
like she was talking about her skin and like how it helped with her gut issues, and that tend to be a good performer in Google Ads,
Yeah.
which Google Ads is a little bit different
Mm.
than Meta, right? Like Meta, usually
Yes.
you throw a lot of UGC and they work, but in
Yep.
Google Ads it's a lot more difficult to get videos to convert,
Mm.
especially like in these where you get flagged with healthcare issues,
Mm-hmm.
so it's like you get limited. But that one ad that was like, one of our colleagues' mom, and it was very natural. It was one of the top performers.
Mm. That I find really interesting because that shows me a little bit of how sensitive your audience is to authority, right? Specifically older generational authority. So people talk about this all the time. Should we get somebody in our ads that looks like our customer? Because for some reason we have, a lot of people in our ads who are younger, but boomers buy from us like a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting though, because I truly believe you should only put models in your ads if that's the mechanism that people need to feel comfortable to buy.
Hmm.
So for you guys, sounds like you had an older model who was using the product and who was basically acting as a position of authority, a parental figure
Trusting.
that said, yeah, trust. It's so much easier to trust family than
Yeah.
it is to trust doctors these
Mhm.
days. So your audience might be craving heavily familial authority. So I would run with that. I would put a lot more of that in there.
I love that idea. And to clarify the UGC thing, because I wouldn't not test UGC, right? But if you look at the competitor, the Manuka, it was very much like chop, 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 chop. Like here's the 4 things I did not know about honey and I noticed that if you look through their library, they use the same exact script with 2 different AI generated voices and run through it that way. And then I think so. I saw on your brand you have some. Is that the founder in a beekeeping suit? That I love that. And there's a brand. If you go into Meta Ad Library, it's called Fresh Chili or Fresh Chili Company, but you have to type in just Fresh Chili. A guy named Chris does the ads for them, or he's part of the brand. They do a very good job at creating behind the scenes, grassroots, like uncut. Some of their ads are like 8 minutes long of them just talking.
Whoa.
Yeah, very long.
That's amazing.
Don't hold me to 8 minutes. It might be like 6 or 5, but they're very long. But
That's
some
still
of that is
long.
very long. But it's just them in the fields showing that they are physically working and then roasting the chili and all that, right? They do a very good job at putting a face to their brand, which I know Gen Z and younger generation likes, but I think that kind of resonates. Sarah could tell you better. I think that kind of resonates with a lot of generations of liking to see a face to it. but they show with that subconsciously that it is not mass produced, that it is small batch, that it is straight to you. I think leaning into that more and even stretching out those videos and turning them into educational, because Manuka Doctor does that, but they do it in a clean kitchen environment and he's wearing a button up shirt. I love the idea of trying to translate that fresh chili company feel with their ads into yours, showing the beekeepers working and leaning into that brand positioning of being grassroots and to the ground that way.
Yep. I would agree 100%, especially for this particular customer type. It's going to be pretty important for them to understand exactly what's in it, what the industry is like, what they need to focus on. And sometimes we want to cut these ads short because we've been told that like this is the best way to do it. Just 30 to 45 seconds. Don't make it longer than that. People don't have attention spans. 100% incorrect. People stop saying that. Like people have attention spans. In fact, my husband, most consumer you've ever seen, he will watch like 3-4 hour long videos on like how toasters became a thing. It just, I don't even know. The things that we are interested in, we will actually expend a whole lot of mental energy to find out about, right? To gather information on. So don't assume that any customer wants it truncated. In fact, for this customer type, because they're older, they probably do want to see something much, much longer. Explain all of it to me. Find some interesting things about honey that nobody knew. For instance, like, I don't know, it's totally made up, but is honey not supposed to be sticky? That would be fascinating. True. I would watch that for so long because honey is sticky. Take whatever is an industry norm and then flip it upside down. I do this all the time for my own content. I'm like, this is something we believe. It's not something that's actually true. And it works incredibly well to keep attention, but it also educates, helps people feel like they're smarter after coming in contact with you, which is really critical.
I agree 100%. And I mean, I personally am a spreadsheeter. I will like, if I'm choosing between like, let's say probiotics, like I will make a spreadsheet priced milligram or whatever, and like understand like what's the most bang for my buck and what's going to work the best. Like, so I mean, people will, if you have a big enough problem and medical problems fall into that category that are impacting your daily life, people will do that research.
Yes.
So we've talked about that. I mean, the ads that are longer form video, people in the field, I would say definitely invest in a good wireless microphone, because a good video can't be good without lighting and sound, right? And you have the natural light. So just make sure there is a good microphone. And you can see on the fresh chili ads, they're very loud because they have a little lapel mic there. Look at educational content. Sarah, what's your thoughts on, so I came into this conversation, or I came into the research not familiar with this. I do local honey. I've always heard local honey is good for your allergies and that type of stuff. Should they be going after people that are already familiar with this type of honey to convert people that were familiar with honey, but not this type of honey? Where does that fall into the mix?
So I always tell brands, if you're looking to survive past about 2 to 3 years, you have to market to somebody who has no idea that you even exist right now. So good content is huge. Don't put that in ads though. Paid advertising has a purpose, and that's to grow, right? We need revenue. We have to get in sales from that particular marketing channel. You can do some awareness level stuff in there. And like I said, there's like 4 different ways that I kind of go about this. But in general, I try really hard not to market to completely unaware, like we haven't even heard of you ever. We don't even know Manuka honey is a thing in an ad account, because you can do it cheaper. You can do it for free in your organic ecosystems. And we should be. Yeah. Everybody on the planet should be building an organic ecosystem before we run ads. That's the proper way to do it. Not everybody had time for it, so I understand. But in general, getting really good creative these days is dirt cheap, like especially with chat and all the AI that's coming out. You can get an organic ecosystem set up pretty quickly. And that organic one should be talking to people who like honey, who understand the benefits of it, but don't know anything about this like more exclusive, very, very highly technologically based type of honey, right? In your organic ecosystems, I would want to see tests of things. You know that honey is good for your allergies. So that's like a kind of aware customer. And you currently use it for your lips. You use it for all kinds of other things. Did you also know that consuming honey can do more for your body health than just putting it on the outside, right? So I wouldn't talk about Manuka or like the brands or like the industry as a whole. I would talk about specifically, here's some other use cases for honey that you have not thought about. You got to open up unaware customers kind of like slowly, because your expansion, that's expansion marketing. Mm-hmm. And it takes a minute for people to understand what you're trying to say. Now, some brands have done this incredibly quickly. So for instance, I just read, and I need to fact check this, so don't quote, but I heard a story about how oranges became like a thing, like how orange juice actually became a product. And I was like, oh, I've never, of course, this piece of content was like right up there. Yeah, I thought orange juice was like a thing. So apparently they had manufacturers of oranges really only saw people using them specifically at Christmas or for gifts, like to put in stockings and things. Very, very small industry for a very long time. I'd have to double check when this happened. But they went to a behavioral scientist who understood how to like build behaviors with humans. He took one look at it and was like, oh, well, oranges have vitamin C. Vitamin C is not something the body naturally produces. So you should just tell people that they need to juice oranges and drink it every day. And then they'll get their registered level of vitamin C. So they, instead of selling oranges, this I found interesting, the orange manufacturers made a juicer. They made a juicer first and then sold the juicer. And now it's like, oh, you need ingredients for the juicer. Yeah. Oh, we have those. Do you want to buy oranges? And then it was just like all of a sudden, now everybody assumes there's vitamin C in orange juice. I take it when I'm about to get sick.
Yeah.
So there's things like that in the actual industry. What is, and this is why I tell everybody, you have multiple sister industries that you're attached to all over the place. What is honey attached to that we don't know it's attached to? And that takes deeper research, obviously. But in that particular use case, and like I said, somebody go find this study for me, this story, because it was fascinating. But for oranges in particular, they attached it to people wanted vitamins because they kept hearing during that particular time period that like the food pyramid was not enough. You're not getting enough nutrients. And that was something everyone was saying. The entire culture was saying it. So they were like nervous about it. The emotional pressure was building, and orange companies were able to kind of capitalize on it.
That is fascinating so stuff. Interesting.
Yeah. I know. And now I'm like, can you do this? Can somebody just like go make up like a mechanism like this? Bonkers. Like the most fascinating thing I've ever heard in my life. So I would be interested to see what other industry are you attached to that has a very specific, like they attached oranges to vitamin C in particular. They didn't just say vitamins, right? It wasn't vague. It was like one vitamin that you can only get from oranges. And then they put a middleman in there so that people would build their own demand, basically.
GPT says the 40s. So we'll go with the 1940s.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Okay, good. So this is like relatively good information.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you fact checked, because I was like, I haven't fact checked this yet.
GPT says the 40s.
Check it.
And GPT is always right? So it's the new internet.
Always right. Yeah. So that again, and this is like deeper brand building, but that's probably the next place I would go. As soon as you get the ad account set up, we're starting to test correctly. We're bringing in some of this authority proof. We're bringing in all these really interesting things about what they love about bees and trees compared to everybody else. Once you have that system set up, then we go in and say, can we boost behavior around honey to make the industry grow? Because when the industry grows, then we grow too.
And you've seen that with not as much elderberry, but you've seen that with apple cider vinegar.
Yes.
Because apple cider vinegar was huge for some. I mean, it still is, but it was huge there for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Huge.
People try really hard, I think, to force it. They try and like force grow industries, when what they should be doing again is just attaching to something that people already want.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a part of your industry. That's just a part of the culture as a whole. And this is why I study culture all day long. But fascinating stuff.
Well, Karina, any questions on your end? I know you're in the execution. And one thing I would just like to kind of recap that we said is, ROA is important, CPA important. And I understand as a agency owner that works with clients, you have to achieve those things, right? Like if you're a performance marketer, it's kind of like you have a trigger to your head at times, like we need the performance. But there are times where you do need to go through those phases of, like we've talked about, is like establishing your brand messaging and moving the account in the right direction for long-term growth, right? So any questions on your end about creative or about just overall strategy as you're looking at kind of taking all this and translating it into like next steps?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's super interesting you mentioned, like the performance related things, because at CDX where I work, we focus a lot on new customer growth, and actually
Hmm.
how we're measured against is like NCPA,
Okay.
Mm.
specifically for this brand, right? So, just looking at in terms of what we are able to achieve, looking for um, that are in that mindset but don't know that they need it yet. Like how can we grow more of that curiosity, I would say, like in being more educational. I love that. But yeah, if you have also any tips on like, you know, focusing on the new customers, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on demand generation, but Sarah, anything top of mind for you?
New customers are interesting because we have to figure out what they're currently looking for right now.
Yeah.
So I always default back to research. But in general, I always just take a look at the time of the year. Right now is the time period where we're actually segueing out of like health issues. People aren't getting as sick as much. We're still getting colds and flus, but we're not in cold and flu season. But the things that they are looking forward to is summer. So
More
there's going to be a lot of
skin,
barbecues. Yeah,
more
more
skin
skin
issues.
outside,
Yeah.
sun exposure. And I always tell people 6 weeks before it hits, guys, like we got to start running ads 6 weeks before it hits because this is when people are actually thinking about it because the swimsuits came out in Target like last week.
Yeah.
So the big brands are starting to capitalize on it. We need to do the same. And again, really, really be careful when you structure your test with how people actually want the benefits delivered. So don't just run discounts. We got to start understanding, do you want more of the product? And that's a good benefit. Do you just want cheaper product? That's a good benefit. What else do you want? Like structured test.
And I absolutely agree on the discounts. Like even when I was doing the research yesterday, I was looking at Reddit, and all of them were saying that they would buy full price. Like for
Yes.
the
Thank you.
yeah,
I'm like, people will buy full price, guys. Stop discounting.
Take it from my personal experience. If you're driving with spare pants in the back in the trunk of the car, you do not care about 30% off. You care about shipping time.
Yes.
You care about
Fix it.
you care about next day
Exactly.
shipping. That's what you care
Shipping
about.
time.
Yeah.
Yes. Get it to me today.
Yes.
100%. Yep.
Yes. No, 100%. Well, I mean, I think the educational, the founder led type content will be very beneficial as you're going into that and generating demand. I don't know, and I know this kind of goes outside of creative strategy for Facebook ads. I don't know what your full scope as an agency looks like with this client, but I think knowing the customer journey and YouTubing and Redditing and all those types of things, making sure those grounds are covered could be beneficial as well. One thing that it could just be that we didn't find it. But one thing that I noticed is I did not find this brand in our Reddit researches. I did find your competitors' brand names in the Reddit research. So there may be some opportunity to get them more on Reddit, not as just the honey, but as your specific brand, right? Create that conversation and put that out there, right? And then making sure that there is educational content. If you're already making it for your Facebook ads and you're already making it long form, pop it on a YouTube channel and try to start driving stuff through the YouTube channel, or probably easier to do the inverse, make it for YouTube and then clip it for Facebook as you go forward that way as well. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. No, YouTube is definitely one of the things that we do. Even from an ads perspective, they do get limited because of the healthcare thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is definitely, like a great driver.
Yeah. And one other thing that I would say that could be very beneficial, two things actually. You see this in the B2B world, like with thought leadership. So there's somebody named Barry Hott. He's very popular for a term called ugly ads. He's done a very good job at positioning himself against high polished, super brand guideline creative because he wants creative that's going to perform ugly ads, right? There's another guy named Chris Walker. He's in the B2B space for marketing. He's very much on demand generation side. He's pitted himself against lead generated, gated content downloads, pointless vanity metrics that don't turn into SQLs or sales qualified leads. So they put themselves against an enemy and they angle themselves with a tangible solution that people can resonate with. There could be an enemy that could be pitted against your brand here, like the alternative. So pharmaceuticals or something like that, that could be the alternative that people want to get away from and want to go towards. And the second one, which can kind of feed into that, is nano micro influencers. I know I said the mass, like the Kardashian, they said cheapened it. We've worked with a men's health product before, and just to kind of give you some stats, worked with sub 10,000, so nano influencers, sub 10,000 followers, monthly ad spend in the account, 73,000, account average CPA, not including the whitelisted ads from nano influencers, $47.38. Whitelisted ad campaign CPA, $28.94, 38% decline in CPA. Whitelisted campaign percent of ad spend to total account, only 8%, right? So it's not, I'm not saying it's highly scalable, but those types of things as well can ultimately help drive audience expansion and account horizontal expansion as well as you're trying to scale things out. So that might be beneficial for you also.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
So cool. Sarah, anything else top of mind for you that would be beneficial for us to look at?
I don't think so. I feel like we've given you like a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of, I was going to say, this is a lot of information, but it's recorded, everybody. You can go back and listen to it. Yeah, a lot of this comes down to you guys you're getting the right spot. You're doing a lot of things correctly. We just need to amplify it, make it more, make it bigger, and start to go after the audiences that are currently buying while nurturing the people that are actually going to come in and buy later. So yeah, you're doing great.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. This was a great episode. I'll send you this deck after, and thank you for your research deck. I'm going to steal that process. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that. So please feel free to steal ours, but I'm going to steal your process. We're going to add that into ours.
That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.